I once was Calistarius. He has been dead for many years. I stand in his place, with death in my right hand, darkness in my left. And I would know who this is who bears the name Mephiston.
The Angels of Death are the most battle-hardened warriors of the Imperium, and as such their countenance is marked with the grim promise of destruction. Many have been attributed titles of glory, valor, and even foreboding, yet one above all is synonymous with the ruination of his foes. The Lord of Death and Chief Librarian of the Blood Angels, Mephiston. Prior to his ascension as Chief Librarian of the Blood Angels chapter, the warrior known as Mephiston served under a different name, or more accurately, lived as a different man entire. A young librarian of the junior rank of Lexicanium by the name of Calistarius, though his recruitment into the Order and deeds of his transformation into the Astartes are lost to time, records exist of a particularly important mission during 589.M41. The vast space hulk, the Sin of Damnation, breached the veil of the Immaterium close to the chapter's homeworld of Baal, requiring cleansing of its twisted carcass of Xenos filth. Originally cited during 996.M40 in the chapter's prior history, its name was a stain on the Blood Angels' honor due to their first attempt to purge its contents, threatening their extinction with only 50 Battle Brothers surviving the ordeal. Strikeforce Raphael intercepted the Space Hulk, deploying Calistarius among their number of the First Company veterans to aid in their location of objectives within its maze-like interior. Clad in Terminator armor and armed with among the most potent weapons of the chapter, the veterans trudged through the bowels of the monstrous vessel after breaching its hull using boarding torpedoes. Swarmed by hordes of foul, gene-stealer Xenos within its twisted corridors, the mighty Archangels cut a swathe through their ranks, despite incurring heavy casualties among the fray. Aiding Captain Raphael's strike team with his fledgling yet potent psychic might, Calistarius' precognitive powers, though priceless in the battle, did not spare him from watching his peers die long before the talons of the Xenos had even struck. Plundering the Sin of Damnation's guarded treasures and cleansing the corruption within, Strikeforce Raphael had finally captured the vast ship 600 years following its initial insurgence. Calistarius for his involvement was honored for his service, yet could not look upon his fallen battle brothers with even a shred of empathy. Set apart from his non-psychic kin, even during their cooperation, Calistarius required a mentor of great wisdom to hone his growing power and diminish his resentment. Brother Librarian Gaius Racelus, a grizzled epistolary of the blood, saw the potential within Calistarius, and saw within him the true valor of their creed. Nurturing his progression through the ranks of the Librarium, Racelus's efforts in molding Calistarius into a librarian of great strength would be cut short by a twist of fate. Upon the world of Armageddon, the Imperium staved off an invasion of obscene might. The Greenskins sought to once again reclaim the world of their wretched birth, for the planet once known as Ulanor had long been a bastion of the Imperium's military might, following its conquest of the Great Crusade. The War of the Beast had failed in its attempt to reclaim the industrial hive world from humanity, and with the ministrations of the Adepts of Mars, the planet had been renamed and transported to a distant sector of space to shroud its true nature. Yet for all the idiocy and ignorance of the Orc species, no matter the deception, they were drawn like a moth to the flame to Armageddon, and led by their disgusting ruler, Gazgul Mag Uruk Fraka, laid siege to the planet. The Second War for Armageddon required a force of immense might to combat the threat, drafting untold Space Marine chapters, Militarum regiments and Titan legios to stave off the Greenskin tide. Among the ranks of the Astartes, the Blood Angels saw to the defense of Hades' hive as the Orc menace rampaged across its soil. There Calistarius stood, defiant against the Xenos and their barbaric onslaught, yet in the shadow of Hades' hive, the librarian fell. Surrendering to the curse of the Black Rage during the battle, Calistarius was installed as a member of the Chaplain's Death Company and took part in the final assault of the Ecclesiorium of the Hive City. Buried beneath tons of collapsed cathedral spires and masonry, Calistarius languished beneath the carnage above as the rage tormented his helpless body for solar days. Screaming endlessly among the debris as he fought in vain to push the crushing rubble from his body, Calistarius' final moments were that of madness, desperation, and futility. Yet on the 7th day of his imprisonment, a new being rose from beneath the shattered temple. Calistarius was dead, yet something new and alien to his form had revived, shrouded in etheric and terrible psychic might. Casting aside gigantic boulders which once entombed his body, the sound of stone colliding against the rubble drew the greenskins to investigate. Thinking the lone unarmored Astartes to be of no threat, the Orcs set upon the being. Learning too late their fatal mistake, the greenskins watched helplessly as the Revenant Angel darted among their ranks, striking them down with fists capable of pulverizing their flesh and shattering bone. Stubbornly refusing to retreat, the Orcs watched helplessly as the creature tore the heart from the largest of their number and drenched his ruined armor with gore and viscera. Knowing itself to be Mephiston, this seemingly sane warrior nonetheless projected an aura of unsettling and nigh heretical power. Returning to the Blood Angels as a stranger in both demeanor and physical characteristics, despite his drastic change, Rassilus recognized the phantom of his former pupil. Seen by his peers as a strange yet hopeful sign of their conquest over their gene curse, the reborn son of the Great Angel would prove a devastating weapon in the hands of the Chapter. Though among the most veteran souls of the Blood, some viewed this fell spectre to be little more than ruination delayed. For such unrestrained power must require a heavy cost. Rising swiftly through the ranks of the Librarium until being appointed as the Chief Librarian of the Blood Angels, Mephiston's deeds encourage both reverence and praise from his kin. Entrusted with the ancient force sword, Vitaris, said to be blessed by a drop of Sanguinius' very blood, its keen edge would be a fitting companion to such a deadly champion. Clad in artificer armor resembling sinew and bone, his appearance strikes fears into the enemies of the Blood Angels, as his psychic rage wreathes Vitaris in black flame. Believed by many to be a savior of his chapter, and the only soul capable of abolishing their gene curse from their bloodline, despite his widespread praise, Mephiston's actions would not absolve him of scrutiny. His uncanny and strange coinciding lack of resemblance to his former self, many within the chapters of the Blood could not bring themselves to trust a being exhibiting traits so intertwined with the powers of the Warp. The Calistarius of old was once talkative, and regardless of his otherness, sought the bonds of kinship with his battle brothers, yet this being was of a more reserved and lonesome disposition. Spending hours on end, alone within his personal quarters, deep in silent contemplation, his countenance, whilst retaining traces of noble bearing, also displays affects of unease and secret burdens. His powers bolstered beyond measure with his domination of the Black Rage, Mephiston now exhibits psychic power beyond the scale of any psyker of the Imperium, with exception given to the Master of Mankind. Known as the Lord of Death by the Blood Angels, such an attribution is well earned due to Mephiston's utter mastery to not only defy Death's embrace, but to deliver his foes to its clutches. Some believe him to embody a fragment of Primarch Sanguinius' own suppressed rage, and due to his position as leader of his chapter's Psyker Order, he is among the most powerful individuals to fight in the name of the Emperor. Trusted and respected by his own chapter master, Commander Dante, above all of his council, the left hand of the Lord of Angels is given immense autonomy in order to preserve the integrity of their chapter. Among his initial deeds as chief librarian of the chapter, Mephiston would reconcile with his former friend, Reclusior Quirinus, within the adrift vessel, Eclipse of Hope. Recovering a seemingly ancient statue depiction of Sanguinius facing Horus Lupercal from the word-bearers on the planet of Philin, Mephiston saw within it a deeply troubled presence. Containing the ancient servant of Khorne, Doombreed, with its release into the material realm, magma erupted from the planet's core as the Blood Angels were set upon by the revived corpses of the long dead. Rejecting the demon's offer to serve the Blood God, after banishing the demon into the warp, Mephiston watched his old friend Quirinus fall to the Black Rage. Conferring with the deceased husks of the chapter's former chief librarians that retained psychic communion within his chambers upon Baal, the Lord of Death sought counsel from the wise heroes of yore. For in spite of his bonds of former comrades further perishing, the Lord of Death would prove crucial in the most dire events of his chapter's recent history. During 999.M41, a schism would fracture the chapter of the Blood Angels. With the recovery of the ancient artifact, the Spear of Telesto from the clutches of the Orc Xenos, the returned Archaeotech relic weapon, wielded personally by Sanguinius, plunged a contingent of the chapter into the clutches of chaos. Several Astartes of the Blood Angels' Sixth Company, the Eternals, had witnessed a scion among their ranks seemingly transcend as the great angel reborn upon the world of Cybele. Fighting the Word-Bearers Legion under orders from Commander Dante to protect the cemetery world designated the Mausoleum Valorum by the Ecclesiarchy, the Sons of Lorgar had attempted to claim the otherwise strategically useless planet as a victory of propaganda. Inquisitor Steele of the Ordo Hereticus aided the conflict waged by the Blood Angels as a long-standing ally of the chapter, yet none within their ranks knew of his true allegiance. A servant of the Changer of Ways, Tzeentch, Inquisitor Steele entrusted the recently recovered Spear of Telesto to the young Astartes Archaeo in order to further his own schemes. The relic's reaction to Archaeo's blood imprint, empowering him with the might of the Great Angel, the scion of Sanguinius tore through the Word-Bearers' ranks alongside his brother Rathan and foiled their efforts to claim Cybele. Wreathed in holy golden light when wielding the spear, Archaeo the Reborn Angel, with the endorsement of the zealous sanguinary priest Sakael, was promoted to the rank of Honor Guard and began his descent into hubris. Rathan watched his blood brother's ego burgeon as he demanded his armor be reforged into gold alike to the Sanguinary Guard, and with his seeming miracles made upon the assault of the planet of Shenlong, Rathan transmitted a warning to Commander Dante. Dispatching Mephiston to investigate the actions of Inquisitor Steele and the ascension of Archaeo the Blessed, the Lord of Death's psychic powers would be a fitting means to detect the potential taint of chaos. Arriving upon the shrine world of Sabian and judging Archaeo's deeds, Mephiston detected the insidious mark of chaos within him and denounced the reborn angel as a false prophet. Declaring Inquisitor Steele as a heretic to the Imperium, the Lord of Death challenged Archaeo to a duel. Yet in his stead, the recently promoted Sergeant Rathan requested the right to face his blood brother in Mephiston's stead, for he had long doubted the veracity of Archaeo's divinity and believed himself to be the only Astartes responsible for bringing his kin to heel. Seeing a vision that it was Rathan's destiny to face his brother in battle within his mind, Mephiston allowed them to duel to the death. Slaying Archaeo by impaling his heart with the Spear of Telesto, the Angel Reborn begged his brother for forgiveness as the light faded in his eyes. The architect of the deception, the greater demon Malphalax, revealed itself to the Blood Angels and laid bare its bargain with Inquisitor Steele and the Word-Bearers' Warmaster, Garand. Their plan to turn the Blood Angels chapter to the thrall of chaos foiled with the death of the false Messiah and his plans in ruin, Malphalax possessed Inquisitor Steele's body. Manifesting as a Lord of Change, Malphalax would be confronted by Rathan before its influence could corrupt the present Blood Angels with the curse of the Black Rage. Banishing the greater demon with the Spear of Telesto, Rathan watched as the Lord of Death once more succumbed to the Black Rage. Directing the relic's power upon Mephiston, Rathan the Ready's actions broke the hold of the curse and returned the Chief Librarian to sanity once more. Burning Archaeo's remains upon a pyre to respect his tragic downfall, which had been no fault of his own, those that had followed him learned the harsh lesson in the insidious nature of chaos. Recovering the fallen bodies of the slain and transporting them to Mephiston's personal warship, they would be stripped of their ceramite and shackled. The sanguinary priests believed their gene seed to be tainted beyond recovery, yet despite such misgivings, Mephiston demanded all their gene seed to be retrieved and secured for the return to Baal for Dante to decide its fate. The civil war was over, yet many brothers of the blood had fallen by the manifested schemes of chaos. Mephiston had once again been held ransom by fell powers, yet as future disaster threatened the chapter, he would not stand idly by. Returning to his chapter alongside Sergeant Rathan, the deeds of the young warrior would be relayed to Commander Dante. Offering Rathan the position of captain for his actions, the young sergeant refused the offer and chose to instead earn the position with continued persistent service to his chapter. Requesting Mephiston to give clemency to the battle brothers of the 6th Company who had followed Archaeo's false crusade, the Lord of Death would honor the wishes of Rathan. As Rathan the Ready continued his service in the name of the Angel, Mephiston's own quest to master his insurmountable power began in earnest. The Lord of Death could not allow his surrender to the Black Rage again, and in his journey to control his nature, now compounded by the expanse of the Great Rift, Epistolary Racelus would stand by his side, as well as the young Lexicanium, brother Lucius Andros. Venturing through the warp to the shrine world of Divinitas Prime, with its separation from the Imperium due to the lost light of the Astronomicon, Mephiston and his band of warriors would find the planet embroiled by religious civil war. Fighting over the ancient artifact, the Blade Petrific, said to be forged by the Master of Mankind himself. With the intervention of the pawns of the Changer of Ways, the planet revealed its true nature. Confronted by the demonly possessed being, Pieter Zarambus, following his duel with the creature, Mephiston would realize the Blade Petrific had been spirited from the Blood Angels by the planet's Chaos Cultists. Allowing them to retreat from the planet, the Lord of Death would forego claiming the blade for a time, in order to quell the plots of Tzeentch, for in his heart, he knew that such a relic would not aid his toil in quelling the Black Rage. With the eclipse of the 41st millennium drawing ever closer, a battle of cataclysmic proportions loomed large over the Baal sector. The Krypton Shield, a defensive network devised to protect the homeworld of the Great Angel from its enemies, collapsed. Hive Fleet Leviathan, the hated foe of the Blood Angels, unleashed its swarms to consume the legacy of Sanguinius. Petitioning the majority of the successor chapters of the Blood Angels for aid, Commander Dante prepared every blade, bolter, and voidcraft to defend Baal from the insatiable hunger of the Great Devourer. As the chapters of the Blood fortified the Baal system for war, Dante knew in his heart that it would be a war for survival, with losses so vast that many chapters of the Blood would become extinct should they falter. Outnumbered by the largest invasion of the Tyranids ever recorded by the Imperium, the valiant sons of the Angel fought tooth and nail to preserve their holy ground. Their enemy adapting its probing assaults and outmaneuvering every counter-offensive strike, even with the Lord of Death carving swaths through their number, it would not be enough. Knowing the nemesis of the chapter, Ka'Bandha, to be preparing to capitalize on their weakened state during the fray, the Lord of Death would confront the Prince of Khorne. Gathering the most powerful librarians of the chapter to oppose the Bane of the Ninth, the Librarium opened a portal to the realm of Khorne in order for Mephiston to quell the threat before its arrival to Baal. Dueling Ka'Bandha with fury and unimaginable might, despite his best efforts, Mephiston could not best such a being in the heart of its domain. Though failing to prevent Ka'Bandha from breaching the mortal realm, the combined strength of the Blood Angels would manage to banish it from the Materium on the soil of Baal Primus. As Ka'Bandha faced the Tyranids and Knights of the Blood Chapter, Mephiston and his librarians desperately toiled to escape the Bloodstone mines, whilst the devastation of Baal concluded. Yet fortune smiled upon the sons of the Angel, for the avenging son of the Emperor, Rabute Guilliman, aided in their plight by unleashing the full might of his vast Indomitas crusade. Baal had been saved, and for his part the Lord of Death had prevented its destruction. Yet if anything had been learned from his chapter's brush with extinction, he would need to grow stronger to protect his kin. Following the devastation of Baal, Mephiston ventured to the world of Morsas to continue in his search for a means to end the expanse of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift. Rendered psychically blind by a device of unknown origin, the Lord of Death, whilst haunted by the memories of his dead past, combated the Necrons besetting the planet alongside contingents of the Imperial Guard and Skitarii of the Mechanicum Magos, Calx. The Imperium's revenant crusade stalling to purge the tomb world of its ancient denizens. With the Avenging Sun's need for soldiers to bolster his Indomitas crusade, the remaining defenders proved insufficient to quell the Necrons. Invoking the ancient Necrontyr treaties of the Zanark tablets, the Lord of Death parleyed with the Pharaon of Morsas to stall their advance. Meanwhile, Lexicanium Antros travelled to the battle barge of the Sons of Helios Astartes chapter, in search for a means to safely harness Mephiston's power, due to the Sons of Helios' purity, despite roaming so close to the heart of the Great Rift. Teaching Antros the method of the Sleepless Mile, the young librarian learned a means to resist the enticements of the warp, methods which he hoped to relay to his superior. Unknowingly drawing from the power of chaos, with Antros' departure from the Sons of Helios' void ship, their chapter master, Dragomir, observed too late his own order's damnation. Back on Morsas, the Lord of Death uncovered the remains of the Imperial Guard forces of the Revenant Crusade within its underground tunnels and devised a strategy to infiltrate the Necrons' domain. Allying with the irradiated Ogrins regarding the Blood Angels as Star Warriors, Mephiston led his band of misfits to the heart of the complex of the Khanisi dynasty. Due to Morsas' status as a crown world of the Infinite Empire, the dynasty's pharaoh had been visited by heliomancer Zartek, who also sought to inspect the mysterious psycho-blocking device for himself. Intending to activate their so-called Orchestrion as a weapon, the device predated Necrontyr history and contained immense power. Utilizing this ancient relic for the mundane purpose as a power source, the insane pharaoh's cryptex harnessed the Orchestrion to fuel their empire, which damaged it in the process. Manipulating the Nemesis of the dynasty to usurp his master, Zartek conspired to steal the device as the Khanisi tore themselves apart. Reaching the Orchestrion, the Lord of Death confirmed it as the source of his blindness and managed to trick Zartek to allow him to harness its power. Overloading the device, Mephiston vaporized the Necron dynasty in its entirety. Due to its connection to its power, it allowed for Zartek to escape. His vision restored, the Lord of Death returned to the vessel Blood Oath and conferred with Antros regarding his journey to the Sons of Helios. Lying to his master, due to foreseeing portents of Mephiston's betrayal of his chapter, Antros' manipulations by the demon of Tzeentch continued to fester. His powers now returned to their full potential. Mephiston returned to Baal with petition from Lord Commander Dante. Seeking to push back the tide of High Fleet Leviathan from Imperium Nihilus, the Blood Angels roused their warriors, now reinforced and recovered from the devastation of Baal. The servants of Belisarius Cawl had been dispatched to the chapter to transcend their firstborn survivors into the forms of Primaris Space Marines. The methods used to cross the Rubicon Primaris, untested by the chapters of the Blood, Mephiston's own struggle to contain his newly restored power, proved to be the surest test to survive the procedure. Contained within a sarcophagus, as dark power oozed from his presence, Mephiston underwent the surgeries of the Primaris and began to transform through the activation of the Belisarian furnace. As his spirit watched the procedures helplessly outside his own body, Mephiston was visited by a fragment of his Primarch's essence as it showed him a vision of two angels fighting eternal within the Immaterium. One formed of gold epitomized their nobility, whilst the other, a shade of purest darkness, represented their curse. The spectre of ruin was winning the duel, for with each battle brother surrendered to the Black Rage, it grew stronger. And it was here that Mephiston achieved his epiphany. Offered a choice by the form of Sanguinius, Mephiston must choose to embody and burden the terrible angel to stave off their ruination, or allow for it to enslave his chapter to madness. He would be the avatar for the angel of purest rage, and in harnessing and containing its tenebrosity, he would unleash its power upon the enemies of the Imperium. Exploding with psychic power, as the blood angels guarding his sedated body died as a result of the outpouring of energy, Commander Dante refused to give High Chaplain Asterath the Grim permission to end Mephiston's life. Containing his power with his full awakening, Mephiston had transformed into a form befitting his burgeoning power, and now as a Primaris Space Marine Psyker, laid the way for his brethren to follow in his footsteps. Lord Commander Dante, despite his age and frailty, following his injury during the devastation of Baal, endured the procedure following Mephiston's recovery as a matter of course. The Blood Angels were reborn, and their avatar of death now stood mightier than ever before, yet the quest to contain the Black Rage remained unconcluded. Embarking to the world of Sebassus within close proximity of the sundered homeworld of the Thousand Suns, the secrets of Mephiston's powers would soon be revealed. Achieving passage through the Cicatrix Maledictum via the capture and compact made with an Eldar Harlequin, the warriors of the Lord of Death utilized the Eldari Webway to reach their goal. The Primarch of the 15th Legion, Magnus the Red, sought to bring his so-called City of Light, a parody of his ruined kingdom on the planet of the Sorcerers, into real space. Hoping to broadcast a psychic signal to pass through every Psyker within the Imperium to draw them to the city, the Demon Prince Zadkael offered a means to fuel their broadcast. Having planted the seed of betrayal within Antros and orchestrating the power imbued within Mephiston from the start, his grand ploy to harness the Lord of Death's now gargantuan psychic might would prove a fitting conduit. War erupted upon Sebassus among the ranks of the Imperial Guard regiments stationed on its surface, and with the capture of such soldiers, a sect of Chaos cultists summoned Zadkael into the material realm. Arriving at Sebassus, Mephiston and his men managed to save the Loyalist Guardsmen and began his investigation of the 9 mountain peaks, which in truth were silvered tower constructs. Captured by the servants of Tzeentch as they began their ritual to sacrifice his being for their own malevolent plans, the Lord of Death split his form into 3 parts in order to foil their designs. His spirit aided his battle brothers in combat. His soul hunted Zadkael as it retreated to Soritarius, and his physical form seized the ritual stone in order to absorb its heat and slow its fueling of the ceremony. Entering the City of Light, Mephiston confronted Zadkael, now empowered through Antros's betrayal of his own master. Realizing the error of his ways, Antros unleashed his psychic power to aid in nullifying the Chaos ritual and caused the Silver Towers to be transported into the realm of Chaos. Following Zadkael's banishment to the Immaterium, Magnus the Red rewarded his failure by transforming his form into a soul imbued with the torment of an entire astropathic choir. Mephiston, through his trials, learned to master his powers to their full extent, for now he finally had the strength to shoulder the burden of his chapter's curse. For the Lord of Death is not a title attributed for mastery to end the lives of mortals, but regards his role as the twice-damned master of the phantoms of the past.
I have escaped the curse. The tales are true. However furious the fight, the usual hunger does not haunt me. My heart no longer pounds with those terrible lusts. I have escaped the doom of our chapter. I am unfettered, free to finally prove our nobility. I have the power to avert the grim fate that hangs over us. This slow, gnawing decline. This gradual death.
This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The Lord of Death stands as among the mightiest protectors of the Imperium, his dark wings outstretched as he refuses to go gently into the darkness as the dying of the light encloses. His sacrifice imbuing him with power, Mephiston harbors the memories of the fallen within his very soul and stands defiant against the enemies of the Imperium. For alike to his example, do not go gentle into that good night, as the trials of the Emperor to achieve his final victory are legion. And whilst only in death does duty end, it is merely the beginning of your service.